Well, for more on the status of Victorian crime and whether this report is ridgy-dig or not, I'm joined by Victorian Liberal MP James Newbury. James, thanks so much for your time tonight. I really do appreciate it. Have you had a look at this report? And more importantly, what's your response to the claims that it's racist to point out some inconvenient truths?
Look, this stuff is no surprise to Victorians. We've been witnessing this for years. We had a series of terrible crimes over recent years, and the government's response in Victoria was not to deal with the crimes, but to pull the race card. It was outrageous. We were seeing some crimes that people in our community had never seen before. And then more recently, I've had a spate of the most vicious attacks that you can imagine committed onto our youngest teens, rapes, serious assaults in parks on a Saturday night. And it's so politically correct in Victoria in terms of the government, I haven't mentioned the race because I know that the second I do, the government will pounce, not act on the crime, not protect my community, but use that as a reason to deflect. So that's how politically correct we are in Victoria. In a state that we now live in Victoria, it's outrageous. The political correctness has to stop. And when you're talking about the worst crimes being committed on, in my case, in my community, young girls, young teenage girls, it's madness. It's total madness.
Yeah, it is madness, James. And yet it seems that, if I recall, the Victorian opposition ran very strongly on a law and order platform at the last election. They didn't get much traction on it, despite us from other states seeing marauding gangs running riot in the city centre, virtually attacking everything in their path and reading a heck of a lot about home invasions. How do you explain what is actually happening in Victoria and the lack of traction that you guys got on the law and order platform at the last election?
Look, I think there are always lots of reasons why you don't win an election, and revisionists, often leftist revisionists, will tell you the reason you lost. It doesn't necessarily bear any semblance to the truth. All I can tell you is, in my community lately, when you've got the worst crimes being committed and police on the ground are telling me they can't use the word gangs in their report, they're being told from higher up, don't use the word gang because higher up is telling them that it has a racist connotation and they need to use the words networked youth. I mean, police are being told to use different words because of some political correct madness. Young girls are being attacked in my parks. Yeah, networked youth. Can you believe it?
People, it sounds like some innocuous Facebook group. Young women or girls are not being attacked by network youth. They are being attacked by gangs. And unfortunately, this report bells the cat that there is an increase in violent crime, which is leading to the arrest of African, Australian youths, Sudanese-born youths, as the report dictates. But the minute you mention that, or you didn't, as the minute the academic mentioned it, the response is this is stereotyping, racial profiling, and it's actually the policeman's fault for this sort of result rather than the perpetrator. This is madness.
Well, you said it right. It is madness. And you said it right earlier on. You said it doesn't matter what the distinguishing feature is of the criminal. The crook is the crook, and the crook deserves to go to jail. And my job is to call out when police resources aren't being adequately directed to my community and crimes are happening. In my case, the crimes weren't even being publicly reported. They only became publicly acknowledged when I did media on it, frankly, and because the victims came to me and said, I want families in the community to know about it. So I felt an obligation to tell the local community so that kids knew what was happening in the park on Saturday night and parents could make informed decisions. This is total and utter madness. But as I say, we've experienced it here for a number of years in Victoria, and there's no doubt it all comes down to the Andrews Labor government.
James, you've said your constituents have come to you because they wanted to help other potential victims or people in the community and neighbourhoods. Was that because the Victorian police response wasn't adequate, or was it simply that there was no public attention drawn to what was going on? Because they are two very distinct things, and I don't want to damn the Victorian police even more than they have been perhaps in recent times unnecessarily.
No, it literally was because there was no public awareness drawn to the crimes. No public awareness drawn to the crimes. You can't have young teens being viciously assaulted, sexually assaulted on a Saturday night, have kids going to the park the next Saturday night and not inform the local community that it's happening. I mean, it's just one-on-one. And as I say, we are now in such a politically correct state. I've specifically not referred to the race because I know the Andrews Labor government will use it as a reason to deflect from the issue. That's how political correct it is in this state, and it's mad.
Well, James, you are clearly, the Liberals are clearly up against it. Dan Andrews seems to be all dominant in Victoria. How do you intend to tackle these systemic issues? Because they've been around for a very, very long time. You can't just keep sweeping them under the carpet. We have to speak truth to this in order to keep our communities safe. So what is the plan for the Victorian Liberals?
I think the obligation is on the Liberal Party to use a very strong voice. In my experience, in a lifetime of politics, frankly, people will write you off, but we know miracles can happen. So it is, as the Prime Minister has said and showed himself. So I'd say to every Liberal, not just party members, every Liberal-minded person, use your voice. If you don't like what's going on, don't sit at home watching television and do nothing about it. Tell your neighbour. Tell your friends, we've got to get rid of this guy, Daniel Andrews. He's dangerous. We must get rid of him, and we're only going to do it if the community work together to get rid of him at the next election.
Well, I have to agree with those sentiments, quite frankly. I think every citizen has a responsibility to speak up for their own community and to vocalise or give their voice to their MP, and the MPs have to respond in kind. James Newbury, I really appreciate you speaking up and joining me on the Bolt Report tonight. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.